Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Small Talk. I'm Amy, and this is my maybe one day will be my wife, fiance,
yes, hopefully,
Maggie, and together we are ThinkerThemer, and this is Small Talk, where we talk about, generally speaking, a range of filler and lighter style games or shorter games. But before that, we usually go through some frequently or infrequently asked questions, and we talk about any topics that are really on our mind for that fortnight. And it's a bit, this video, we like to, it's a bit more chill. We like to make a cup of tea. We've got our tea and sit down and just have a chat with you all about gaming. So this week we wanted to start with, of course, a postcard update.
Yes.
If you've been following along, back in May, we hit 5,000 subscribers and we asked people from all over the world, all of you, to send us a postcard that represented where you lived so that we could put it behind us in our regular studio, so you'll see them in most of our videos now, to give us that physical reminder of all the love that this community has. And it is so special to us. Every time we look at that wall, we're just reminded of places that we've traveled, places that we want to go, and all the conversations that we've had with you all. So it's super special. We're up to, I think, 96 postcards that we've received since then, which is quite amazing considering how far they have to come to Australia.
Yeah.
But they're slowing down a little bit now, of course, but there's still some trickling through. So we've got a few to go through today.
All right.
So do you want to go first?
Yes. So the first one is a beautiful and colorful postcard. It says summer in Frederick, Maryland. And this is coming from Sam. So Sam, thank you for sending this through. Sam says, you two are at the top of my board game YouTube channels because you're so engaging and fun to listen to. Thanks for being such a wonderful voice in the board gaming community. That is super sweet, and that is so heartwarming.
It is.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you,
Sam.
Sam.
A beautiful card as well. I love colorful things.
Beautiful. The next one is actually from Brisbane. So it's coming from
around the corner.
Martin, around the corner, kind of. Well, not really. We can't really travel anywhere at the moment because our state borders are closed and we're in lockdown again. But anyway, Brisbane is a place that is near and dear to my heart because I went to university in Brisbane. I went to the University of Queensland and, had my first professional job there. Not my first job. My first job was not there. My first job was less glamorous.
What was your first job?
It was Burger King, or as here we call it Hungry Jack's.
Yes, here's Hungry Jack's, but it's everywhere else in the world is Burger King.
I think it's called, there was like a copyright.
Well, there was already a Burger King here, and so they couldn't get the name. And they were very stubborn that I don't think it's around anymore, the other local Burger King.
Oh, probably not, but now it's Hungry Jack's here, which is probably quite strange to anyone visiting here.
But I didn't realize that was your first job. I thought your first job was the other photography job.
No, that was much later when I was at university. But while I was in school, and I didn't last very long in this Burger King Hungry Jack's job, it was awful, just awful. I remember cleaning the bathrooms and I was just like, no, maybe I'll just live at home forever and not save any money.
You have to, independence with, it comes at a cost.
No, I left over when I was 17. I was very determined to go and chase my dreams of moving to Brisbane. So that, I did move to Brisbane for university.
Job? That's my favorite.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was a koala photographer at a sanctuary. I got to use a little bit of my Japanese because there was constantly just kind of busloads of tourists coming through. So that was really fun as well. But thank you, Martin, for sending through this postcard of Brisbane. Great to have it up on our wall and represented.
Yeah. Now, my next one is actually two cards from, I think it's Kevin. I can't quite read the handwriting if it's Kevin or Karen. I'm going to go with Kevin, and hopefully I've got this right. But this is of Ashwood Forest, which I believe is the forest of Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
Yes.
The 100-acre woods.
Yes. So that's pretty cool. And also, so it's around the area of Crowborough. Crowborough? And on this postcard, we have the town centre, the back of the statue of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Not sure why the back.
Yep.
Not
it's very artistic.
It is a very artistic kind of card. And Ashdown Forest as well. So the other thing that I loved that Kevin wrote here, I'm going with Kevin, is it says, love what you're both doing, and you always brighten my day. Stay safe, stay strong, and the day you lose the buzz for being content creators, I pray you drop us and embrace each other and move on to other exciting things. So my hope is that we won't be dropping anyone anytime soon.
But that's really sweet.
But that is very sweet and very considerate.
And I think if we did lose the passion for it, we would probably have to stop, because that's what we try and bring when we create videos, is just our love of gaming and our love of the community. So hopefully we still love all of those things. So we won't be dropping anyone anytime soon. But appreciate that thought.
That's
really
good.
sweet.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much. The next one is from Vancouver. I have actually been to Vancouver just once, beautiful city, and it says Happy Canada Day, which I didn't know was a day. And this is from Sam, who writes that it has been a joy getting to know you guys through YouTube. Your channel is a wonderful addition to this hobby of ours and feels incredibly inclusive and warm. Oh, so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much, Sam. Clearly I need some more caffeine. But Sam also writes, P.S. sorry for the rubbish handwriting, which kind of made me laugh, because I write that on everything, because when I have to write something by hand, it's just, I get like hand cramps because we don't do it anymore. There's no need to.
My handwriting has always been like a 5-year-old handwriting.
It's
to
true.
the point that like Amy's always like, do you need a crayon for
Yes,
that?
it's true. It looks like she writes in crayon with the wrong hand. Like,
like I'm writing with my non-dominant hand.
it's because you're very tech literate and you're always typing.
Sure, we'll go with that. It's always been terrible handwriting.
No, I have a really good story.
Yeah.
But the reason why I tease you is because, no, not for you, for them, you know this story, but Maggie's signature is so terrible, because she thought that when you chose a signature when you were young, you had to keep replicating that signature. You could never change it ever again. And obviously, because you were moving into, like,
because I've been moving from from South America to the United States and then to Australia. Always had to match my documents, so my all the sort of legal paperwork for all the. And the thing is, the absolute first signature, the first piece of ID that I had to sign, the person that was kind of guiding me said, just write your name there. So I literally just wrote my name in block letters with my like 8-year-old handwriting on it. And so that's forever been my signature.
And it does look like it was written with her left hand with a crayon. It's pretty funny. But I enjoy it. Yeah. And it is definitely unique. No one could fake it. Anyway, thank you, Sam, for this postcard from Vancouver. And don't worry about your handwriting.
Yeah. Your
handwriting's
you're
fine.
Amongst friends here. Yeah, you're in a safe place. Welcome home. Yes. The last one that I have is from Stockholm, a place that I've always wanted to visit. And it's from Nelson y Mariela, 2 Venezuelans living in Stockholm. Venezuela is where I'm from, so I'm actually very, very excited about this one. It says, greetings from Stockholm and congratulations on your 5,000 subscribers. So thank you so much. Gracias por la I can't even remember how you say postcard in Spanish.
Imagine it wasn't something you said very often.
I don't think I ever said it. I never sent a postcard in Spanish. That'll come back to me, I'm sure.
It's probably like very similar to the English word. It's probably just like
postal.
Postcard.
I feel like it's postal, but no, postal is like mail. And anyways, maybe I'll put it on the screen.
Someone maybe post on there. What is postcard in Spanish?
Yeah, how do you say? I think like halfway through the episode, I'll be like, oh, it's this.
Yeah, probably, and scare me.
Yeah.
And the last one that I have is one from Ken. Now, Ken has sent a couple of postcards, and funnily enough, this is the only postcard that has not made it to Australia in its entirety. There's a corner missing.
My theory is that bears ate it.
Well, Ken joked in his last postcard about the tourists and bears getting to them.
The postcard was send more tourists. The last ones were delicious from the bears. So I think bears got to this.
A bear got to this one.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Maybe a drop bear. Australian
Australian drop bear. Yeah, it was when it got here.
Yeah. But, okay, so let me read this as well, because Ken said, we were driving through South Dakota and thought it was a good opportunity to send another postcard. Unfortunately, the only postcard the shop had was of these guys vandalizing the side of a mountain, because if you can see this is Mount Rushmore, where 400 workers spent 14 years carving out this monument. And Ken jokes about it being vandalized, and now his postcard's been vandalized.
I know. Wow. The irony. Yes.
But don't worry, Ken, because we have to lay the postcards on top of each other. So maybe we'll just do one of these ones and cover off that corner. Yeah. And thank you for thinking of us and sending us another postcard, Ken. Love it. It's like people are touring around, traveling, and we're traveling with them.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
In spirit, because we certainly can't go.
Because we're just in lockdown again. Well, yes. So we had 10 days of relative freedoms. It was still pretty restricted. You weren't allowed people at your house and that kind of thing. But I did get to go to the gym for those 10 days, and I did get to go to a restaurant in those 10 days. And then after 10 days, we went back into full lockdown. Yes. So things are pretty tricky in Australia at the moment.
It's probably just going to be the way for the rest of the year.
For a little while until we can get people vaccinated, until we get more vaccines. But yes, so the next part of this episode, I want to talk about, I do have some questions from viewers. But one thing that happened yesterday, and probably will drop around the same time as this video, is you recorded a special video.
I did, yes. One that had been in the making for a little while with a fairly not very well known YouTuber called Rahdo.
Tiny YouTuber called
channel.
Rahdo.
Yeah, called Rahdo. So we actually did a top 10 solo list. So he went through his top 10 and I went through my top 10. So pretty excited about that. Pretty excited energy throughout. I often can go into that hyper intense energy when I'm very excited about something. Rahdo is very high energy, and I had a feeling that might happen where we'd kind of feed off each other, and then we both talk a lot, so it's a long one as well.
Actually, Richard is very energetic, even in person when he's not recording. When you're just talking to him, he has so much energy, and I guess that's why people love to watch him, because of all of that energy. And Maggie, when she gets passionate about something, also a lot of energy. So you can imagine that together. I haven't even watched the video yet, so I'm looking forward to it dropping. But I could overhear a bit of the filming, and it sounded pretty hyper.
So it might be draining and exhausting, and I apologize in advance if that's the case. Maybe just take it in small bits.
But the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because in this video, it did go on for a long time with your filming.
It's almost 2 hours.
And I know you got a chance to talk about one honourable mention above and beyond your top 10 solos.
But it's not above and beyond the game.
Well, we won't give away what they are. We won't give away if you want to watch that list, we'll link to that. Of course, we'll link to that. Go check it out. But you do have two more honourable mentions.
Honourable mentions that I didn't get a chance, because I was like, I could go into it, but this is already too long. But one of them is Coffee Roasters, which I believe we've covered before, and that is a solo-only, beautiful little Japanese game where you are roasting coffee beans, trying to get to the perfect brew, and it's just. I just love it. It's one of those, I'm terrible at it, but I don't mind. I just find the whole process really, I find it oddly relaxing, even though, inevitably the game kicks my butt every time. But beautiful game, and it would be in my top 15.
Top 15? Yeah. Oh, so it was pretty close to making the list.
It was close, it was there. And the other one was one big gap in my repertoire, in my collection, or in my experience playing, that I always stayed away from because of the theme, and that is Mage Knight. Because as you know, we don't really like fantasy or spells or, that sort of, or combat and that sort of stuff. So I'd always seen it and go, nah, even though it's on a lot of people's favorite of all time solo experiences. It's not just a solo game, you can play it cooperatively and competitively. But I did, so Amy graciously, she just went and got it for me, which is...
Well, I knew that it was in a lot of people's top 10s. I thought you should at least, it could, I thought maybe it will be in
Maybe it'll make it.
Rahdo's
Yeah.
top
Oh yeah.
10.
Maybe it'll be on Rahdo's.
So maybe
it'll make
you
it
should
to
give
mine.
it a go.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll make it
Yeah.
to yours. Yeah.
And so she got it for me, and someone's got to do the hard work. And for research, I learned it, I played it, and it is excellent. Like, it is a great, great game. It's not in my top 10 because of the theme. It is like, it's not the type of game that I'd want to go back in and play time and time again. I would love to play it with you. Because, and there was
I always thought it was cooperative. Like, when I'd seen it around, I thought it was cooperative.
There are some scenarios that are cooperative.
But there's competitive scenarios.
Yeah.
So I am very interested to try it.
I absolutely, I could definitely appreciate all the layers that have gone into it, and how the exploring of the land and the surprises in terms of what's going to, what are the types of kind of buildings or structures that you're going to encounter that then determine what monsters or whatever are going to be there. The combat is really interesting as well. I found the deck building element really satisfying, and I can't even articulate why. But there were so many elements that were so beautifully thematic as well, in terms of like the movement, why movement is so much more difficult in different terrains depending on whether it's day or night. There's just so many different elements that I'm like, this is really, really special and huge. Like, there's hours and hours and hours and hours of fun. And
well, I did buy the Ultimate Edition because if you're going to have it, you might as well do it right. So pre-painted miniatures and everything.
But because of the theme is, again, like, that's the only thing that keeps me a little bit sort of out of it.
Did you say that? So you said the solo is very elegant.
The solo is so simple. Like, it is probably one of the simplest, most pleasurable solos to play, because really it's just one deck that is being used as a time sort of a way to keep time moving, but you don't have to do any maintenance for the solo and decision charts of what they do, or they're blocking this action or that. It's just super, super simple. So you really get to just focus on exploring that world and living out your story with your knight.
I'm intrigued.
Mage.
We'll
knight.
give it a go. Competitively, we'll give it a go.
Yeah. I think you'll enjoy some of the mechanics.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
It's got that magical thing. I always talk about, like, the unicorn, sort of the X factor in a game, where it's like, even I can't tell you why, but it's like there's just something in it that is just like, yes, that is good.
That's why so many people love it.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's not undiscovered. It's not like...
No, and it's quite an old game, isn't it? Like, 2014, I don't know. But it's like,
a decade.
There's been
plus,
enough time. There's multiple editions of the game.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I have I've got some FAQs now, or we call them IAQs because they're infrequently asked questions.
You can ask them once and
you just ask them once and we'll answer it.
Yeah.
But
easy.
Craig has a very related question to this, which is to me actually. When Maggie is playing solo, what do you do? Do you ever watch her play solo, or do you help, or do you just go off and occupy time another way? Great question. I don't help and I don't observe. In fact, it's just Maggie goes off, to play her game. She gets herself set up. I don't usually help with the setup.
No.
I think Maggie was playing a lot more solo games in the lead up to that top 10 video.
I had to do the research.
She also wanted to replay all of her favorites as well.
Make sure they're still in the right spot.
Yeah. And so what I was doing during those many, many, many hours was usually making dinner and cleaning up and doing all the other stuff so that it could enable Maggie
looking after the dog,
play some games.
Yeah.
But usually I'm not that nice, and usually I'll just do my own thing. So painting. So I do a lot of miniature painting when I can, and so that a lot of the time is what I'll do if Maggie's playing a board game.
Recently taken into a bit of Zelda.
I have. So this lockdown. This is lockdown number 6 for us, and I just needed something different to get out of the routine. Was struggling a little bit, a lot.
Yeah.
And so I picked up Maggie's Switch. I don't usually play Switch, and I started playing Zelda Breath of the Wild. And kind of got a bit addicted to it. And
it's so beautiful. I love that game so much.
It's a really nice game. And so I've been playing that a bit this week while Maggie's been playing solo. But usually I will...
Or what I call my solo bender.
Yeah.
I've been on a solo bender.
But I do play a few I usually play a lot of Oculus. So I play a lot of rhythm kind of games is what I like arcade style rhythm games. And so I'll do that if Maggie's playing solo. But there's always a million things to do. Our household is not short of hobbies, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So always plenty to do.
It is a hobby house.
And then I usually find out about Maggie's experience of a game solo when we do our review.
Yeah.
We don't really talk about it until like you're explaining it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
Like, oh, that's how that works. Interesting.
Yeah, because I just have no interest in playing solo myself.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then also another question. Okay, how does it feel when one of you or someone else at the table doesn't like a game as much as you?
I think it depends on the game. So if there's consensus that we all did not enjoy the game, then that's probably easier because it's like you almost bond out of the misery of like this game
let's
is not
play something else. Yeah.
This is annoying, or this is broken, or this is but
Craig goes on to say that he's had a sinking feeling once or twice where he thought a game would be a hit and then could just tell by the looks on people's faces that it was falling flat.
Oh, I just had a sinking feeling just remembering, like imagining, playing that out in my mind, going, yeah, that is, because the thing that happens with the board gaming hobby is like we get so passionate and we want to share this and we're so excited. It's like, is that when you have a favorite movie and you're like, I want you to watch this, and you're like watching and you're watching the reaction. I was like, or like that bit, watch this bit.
Yeah, watch.
So, which is one of the most off-putting things.
Yeah,
in a movie.
I was going to say that is the most annoying thing when you're watching a movie.
It's because we love, like there's that rush of joy when we get to share something that we love and we get to sort of see someone have that experience. So it is kind of devastating. Again, it's because we're so like attached to like they're gonna find it great and then they don't, and then it's sort of it's like
I have a different perspective on this.
Well, no, like so okay, so I'll finish my thought after all my rambling.
Okay.
I think part of it is just detaching yourself a little bit from it and kind of the expectations, kind of going, I love this game, I'm hoping people like it, and then if people don't like it, don't take it personally. Again, it's not, it's not really about you, like it's, unless the game was your design, and then that's probably different and you're probably going to take it a bit really more personally, or take it personal. But aside from that, it's like, well, it's, people like things for different reasons, so don't feel disheartened. If anything, this is a challenge of, okay, well, that wasn't the right, it could be the right mechanic or the right thing.
This is what I was going to say, is that for me, I'm constantly collecting data about what my friends and family like and don't like in a board game. I find it really fascinating, and I guess this is where the ThinkerThemer concept came from, that people just find joy and fun in different mechanics or different themes, or the way that those things come together to create an experience, the level of interaction that a game has, whether some people like that or hate that, take that element. And I just love understanding people in general. I mean, that is what I do for a living, work in market research, understanding what people want and what makes them tick. And I've always found that really fascinating. And so with my friends, if we're having a game and it just falls flat, I'm just thinking, okay, well, next time, what will I try? And we have a couple friend who we play with, and she is really into simpler but high interaction kind of games, and she loves like a bit of take that. And he likes really thinky strategic games, and doesn't mind like the multiplayer solitaire, and it's really interesting to kind of test out different games with them and know and predict like who's going to like which game, and then trying to find one that they'll both enjoy. Like it's a really fascinating process.
And I guess that's the other thing, is like, don't see it as it's a marathon, not a sprint. Like, the idea is this long-term engagement of finding something that people will resonate with. So if someone's not enjoying something, it's worthwhile kind of making notes as to why you think that is. So it's like, oh, maybe they're not, what is it that they're not enjoying? Is it because there's take that? Is it because there's a lot of downtime? Is it because they're just getting analysis paralysis and they don't like that feeling? Because they, some people feel really like they feel put on the spot, or they feel under pressure, or they feel, so it's almost like you're kind of learning about them as well. That's one of my favorite things about board gaming, and something that's I've only just kind of begun to realize in this last year, is this thing of people often approach games the way that they approach life, and you often get to learn about someone's strengths and weaknesses, so to speak, or blind spots very strongly, the way that from different games, and seeing what things send people off into different tangents emotionally.
Yeah. And I was also going to say that if you're playing a game and everyone around the table is having a bad time, just close it and open another game.
Because if we're not enjoying this, let's just wrap it up.
Yeah, if you're a collector or you've got lots of board games, I'm sure there's another one that you could just swap to very easily. So try not to take it too personally.
And I have to say, from a themer point, like start with a theme that people are gonna that are already kind of interested in. Because if it's like for me, if I'd never been into board gaming and you sort of show me a space sort of thing or fantasy or sci-fi, it's going to be 20 times more difficult to get me into it, even if it's mechanically brilliant, because just the theme by itself is it's a barrier. Yeah.
Okay, next question from Bookmarks and Bookshelves. You say you're a fan of musical theatre.
Oh.
Yeah. What are your favourite musicals, the favourite shows we've seen live, and what do we want to see in the future? Great question.
This is like an Amy question. I love musicals, but Amy loves musicals.
Okay, so there is this Spotify. If you have Spotify, there is a playlist that I listen to almost every day, which is called Musical Ballads. And if you've been watching this channel for a while, you will know that I have this strange obsession with Mariah Carey. And I always have. I love her music. I've met her. We've traveled many, 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 many times to see her around Australia. We've traveled to follow her. We've seen her in the US a number of times. Big fan. So not surprisingly, when I listen to musicals, I also love the big numbers. The huge ballads, sort of, the love songs.
Yeah, anthemic kind of crescendo.
Oh, that's my jam. That is my jam.
Yeah.
And I listen to...
Just big drama. Big drama in a song. Yeah.
I listen to this Spotify playlist just about every day. If I'm painting, that's what I'm listening to. If I'm setting up a game or punching a game, that's what I'm listening to. If I'm working, that's what I'm listening to. And it's full of the classics. It's got Hopelessly Devoted to You from Greece. Great song.
Olivia Newton-John.
Olivia Newton-John.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of songs from Hamilton. So I listen to the songs on there a lot.
Yeah.
And I also listen to the Hamilton soundtrack. I'm a big fan of that. Songs from Wicked, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Classic.
So let me answer the second question. Favorite show we've seen live? I've seen Wicked live 7 times, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that wins by default because we've just seen it live so many times in different cities.
I haven't. I've only ever seen it, I think, twice.
Okay, for me.
For you. Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
I think it's like starting to, because I've listened to the soundtrack so much, I've probably...
Wasn't there meant to be a movie coming out of Wicked
I think there was a rumour about that.
What happened with that? Yeah.
But yeah, of course, fabulous Idina Menzel. I mean, just anything she does is just wonderful.
Yes.
Yes, so love Wicked, but one that we saw recently in Melbourne actually that I absolutely adored was Muriel's Wedding, the musical.
Yeah, that was great.
So there's a great Australian movie with Toni Collette called Muriel's Wedding, which is full of ABBA songs, but it's also just so unbelievably Australian.
Very.
Australian.
Yeah.
And they turned this movie into a musical production with lots of ABBA songs, and it was just brilliant.
It was great.
It was so good, and the soundtrack is so clever and very Australian. Yeah. We saw The Colour Purple in New York. That was amazing. Incredible performances. We saw... Everybody's talking about
Jamie. Yeah.
And it was the original actress who plays the mum singing one of my favorite songs, He's My Boy. That is an incredible song.
That's an epic song.
Epic number.
Yeah.
We also went and saw Six, the musical.
I love that.
That was great.
That was great.
It was meant to be coming to Australia. Obviously, it got interrupted by COVID. Yeah. But we saw that in London, luckily, in 2019. Yes. That was fabulous. Oh, what else? There's so many. That I want to mention.
My favorite musical of all time is a very quirky and kind of cult classic musical based on the cult classic Reefer Madness.
Reefer Madness.
I must have, because I went to watch it when it was off Broadway in New York, when I was living in New York. And I think I watched it a good 13, 14 times as a student. So it was really difficult to scrap together any amount of money to be able to buy those tickets and but I loved that so much. And I think it was the cast was really amazing. It was like, I think it was like Kristen Bell was playing
my goodness.
Like it was but this was like before like any of these people were like big. I still love it. And it actually, there was a production in Melbourne of like one of the smaller theaters.
Yeah, it was so good.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's so wrong, but so good.
Yeah.
Like from
That was really good. We saw Chess in Melbourne as well.
Oh yeah, Chess was an amazing.
Yeah, that was fabulous.
Songs
Oh, there's so many. I can't even think of all of them right now.
How do you pick your favorite?
Yeah.
It's, it's tough, but yeah, those are
I
some of them.
like all of them. What do we want to see in the future? Okay, so Hamilton is opening in Melbourne, and I have watched the live performance on Disney because they have that on Disney Plus. So I've watched that. I listen to the soundtrack all the time. I had an opportunity to get pre-order tickets, and I just didn't get them. I think I was in a lockdown funk, and I just was like, will we be able to go see it? I don't know. Yeah. I'll deal with that later. And it was like next March. I don't know what I'll be doing next March.
It's been nothing but regrets.
Yeah, and ever since I've been like, I should have bought those tickets.
I'm like, it's fine, babe.
But, I'm
time.
hoping next year maybe, or the year after, we'll travel and maybe we'll see it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Perhaps.
But that is a lot of talk about musicals. So thanks for bearing with that. And thank you for the great question. And then one more from Sarah. Okay, so we did the top 10 video of recently of games that made our relationship stronger.
Yes.
Lots of high tension points. Yes. So Sarah wrote in reply to that video, do either of you do things that annoy the other while you play? For example, second guessing a move, like changing moves, pointing out a better strategy for each other, or playing mind games.
I think we don't intentionally, well, because sometimes you can do that unintentionally, but I don't think, like we have friends that love messing with someone just to get a reaction out of them, even if it's not
like
ideal.
Heckling them.
Yeah, well, not heckling, just like making moves to annoy the other person, even though they're not optimal for themselves, just because they don't necessarily care that much about what's going on in the game. They just love to get that reaction.
But
we
what
never
do
do that.
But what do I do that annoys you? Generally speaking,
probably just win by a lot, by a large margin.
You don't like my smug face, even though I'm not a bad winner.
Yeah, it's. I think the thing that I don't like is when you're like, I'm very chill about like winning, and then I'm like down in the dumps about something, and then you make a little.
I do not. I do not.
That is the one thing I think. But there's nothing else that I think you do that I'm like, sometimes like if you take too long to take your turn, because I get very impatient and I'm like, I just want to take my turn.
Annoyed at my AP.
Which is why it's good to like be able to play games solo sometimes, because then it's just like there's no downtime. I get to play the whole time. But that's the only thing. Yeah.
Maggie does something that annoys me, and that is she does a rule reveal.
It's not intentional.
About
like some people
halfway
do that,
through.
but for me, it's not
But
intentional.
always when you're about to do that move. So it's not like, oh, by the way, you can also do this while I'm having my turn and doing that. It's like, oh, by the way, you can also do this and it's worth 10 VP and I win. I'm like, wait, excuse me?
No, but also sometimes I will say the rule, and then because you're learning, like you're kind of hearing things and it sort of goes over your head, and then be like, you never said. I'm like, I did say it. I did cover it.
No, your teach is sometimes a bit gappy.
Well, if it's the first teach, yes, sometimes it's going to be gappy if I've just learned the game. Like the first game is always going to be.
But it's always the little things that give you the advantage at the end.
Sometimes.
That's annoying.
We'll leave it at that.
But then Sarah says that her partner tells her she is cheating after every move.
That's difficult.
I think I do that to you occasionally. I'll be like,
you do. And then the last person, it's like I never cheat.
Did you cheat? Actually, we just played a game, one of these games, I think. When we're replaying these games, I think there was one game where, and I accused you of cheating, and you're like, I would never do that.
Yeah, castles are burnt. If I cheat, it's because it's unintentional. It's because I don't realize that something is happening. If I have cheated,
I actually don't.
Even if no one's like picked up on it, I will reverse it and be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I messed up. And if it's too far gone, I'll just be like, if I win, it's a dud win. Like it's sort of like we won't count it.
Yes, I do accuse Maggie of cheating quite a little bit. But yes,
cheat,
just
not
like in your
intentionally.
relationship, always in joking ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all of our IAQs for this week. They were great questions. Thank you so much. So now let's talk about some games.
Let's talk about some games.
So we've got 5 games here as usual. Oops, Mike's a bit tangled. Well, the first one's solo, so I'll just sit this one out.
All right, so the first one that I'm going to talk about is Palm Island. Now, this little game is so clever, and even though Amy never cares for anything solo, I was like, Amy, come over here. You're going to have to see how this works. In Palm Island, it's called Palm Island because you are building an island, a budding village in an island, and you do the whole thing in the palm of your hand.
Clever.
So very, very clever. Because the way it works is you've got these cards that have 4 different kind of action spaces. So you're always going to be working with whatever the top action space is that's kind of facing your way. But then you have, as you're going through the deck, there are cards that you can flip to the side, like a 90-degree rotation, and they become resources that then you store. And then those resources, and they kind of go to the back of the deck, but they always keep their order.
That's so clever. So when you're holding a card horizontally, it becomes a resource.
That you've got stored and that you can use. Smart. As the resource for one of the actions on any upcoming card that requires, say, it could be wood, it could be stone, it could be fish, whatever it is. And then what you want to use those for is because then it allows you to upgrade those cards. And the way that you upgrade them is either turn them 180, so just turn them upside down, and then you have a new set of actions. That's usually an upgraded action or a different kind of ability, or sometimes it's just more victory points because it's the equivalent of, you've got a temple or you've got your housing and you're upgrading that. Or it allows you to flip it to the other side, which again gives you another 2 sides where, so it's so clever. And the way that you keep track of it is you have 8 rounds or 8 turns through the deck, and there's a counting card that obviously kind of lets you know when you've gone all the way through, and then you do the same thing where you kind of flip it over and turn it around to keep track of that. It is so pleasant. It's one of those games I love. One of the things that I often enjoy is anything that's to do with the ocean or the sea or islands and things like that. And because you're kind of dealing with wood and fish and building stuff, I love that. And so I find this really relaxing. And I did struggle initially with the holding those side cards. So the horizontal cards, you can have up to 4 of them. And so you kind of want them to be standing out a little bit further one from the other. And it does take a little bit of getting used to have the hand be able to hold, the whole deck, and then all of those cards splayed out to the side. But after you play it a few times, you kind of get that
muscle memory going.
Yeah, you kind of get the stretch, and you develop.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that you can play your card game.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I find it really pleasant, and it's just such a clever use. And this kind of what you can actually play it cooperative, and you can play it competitively, but it's kind of like just there's 2 decks. That's the other thing. It comes with 2 identical decks, so you can race one another. And sort of like try and see who can optimize it
now
the most.
I'm interested. I didn't. You buried the lead on that. I didn't know that we could play competitively.
Well, maybe
we'll have to do that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a beautiful game. I really enjoy it. It even comes with a little wallet, so you can take it with you.
Yeah, it seems like that's what I was going to say. Is it seems like a good game to take traveling because you only play it in your hand. And you don't even need like a bench or anything.
Yeah. So if you're
who's the designer? It's John Meatling.
Yeah, this game is also available. I've seen it a lot for print and play. I've never, obviously because I've got the actual copy. I've never actually printed it, so I don't even know where you would find it. Probably BGG and some of those other places. But yeah, that's a very quick way of checking it out if you're interested.
Very cool.
Palm Island.
The next game is a game that's very well loved by the board game community, and that is a game called Air, Land and Sea. It's been on my list of games to pick up for such a long time. The thing that slowed us down from getting it, again, it's the war theme that we're not that into, but I know that it's very well loved for its mechanics, so we wanted to check it out. Basically, in this game, extremely low rules overhead. All that happens is you deal out 3 theatres of war, so air, land and sea, and they are the center cards. And within each of these theatres, you are going to be each placing cards on your side of that theatre, and at the end of a round, you're going to be tallying up the numbers in that you have on your side, and the person who has the highest sum kind of wins that area control kind of little game. And what makes this game really interesting is you're only dealt 6 cards each. So straight away, you know which cards you're going to be playing into each of these theatres, because you have to play a matching card into the theatre, generally speaking. They also have numerical values of 1 to 6. So obviously 6 is going to be more powerful in the sum than a 1. But then you've got to think really carefully about the order that you play them, because each of these cards has an ability that is activated when you play it into a territory. And so it's really important to play a well-timed card, because obviously you could do something that could mess with your opponent's game, or do something that's really going to benefit yourself. There's a couple of things that I really like about this game. One is that you can play a card face up or face down. When it's face up, it's worth the value, the numerical value. When you play it face down, you can play it anywhere and it's always worth 2. And that's really interesting, because what you can do is you can actually hide the number of a card by playing it upside down, and then use another card's ability to turn it up when your opponent is least expecting it, and you might take the win in that area without them knowing.
Surprise.
I also really like the fact that you're either going to be the first or second player. And interestingly, if you're the first player, you break ties. So it's much harder if you're the second player to win in a round, but the turn order swaps in every kind of match, and the game doesn't end until someone wins 12 victory points. But the other thing that's really cool about this game is that you can actually concede before you lose a round. And depending on how many cards you have left in your hand, determines how many victory points your opponent is going to get by the fact that you're bowing out and they're winning. So if you've got 5 or more cards left in your hand out of 6, like you've called it early and you're like, I definitely can't win.
And you're like, nuts.
I can't win. Then your opponent is only going to get 2 points. But if you play it all the way out and play all your 6 cards and they still win, then they're going to get 6 victory points out of the 12 they need to win the game. So I think that creates some really interesting decisions in this game. But ultimately, the game plays really quickly.
Very quick,
yeah. It's super fast to get
into.
Quick
setup, quick play.
Yeah. I think the more that we played it over and over and over. And I think the more that you get to know the cards, the more strategic you can be. We were trying different tactics of, you can scare people off early by playing high cards, or you can play down the fact that you don't have much control in a certain area. So it's fun to play around with those different concepts. For me, I don't know if we'll keep this game.
Yeah, for me, the theme is a big sort of barrier.
The theme is a barrier.
And then the actual play, the play flow of it, it's not things that I enjoy doing. So I don't enjoy area majority. I don't really enjoy the surprise kind of chaos of all of a sudden this card changes things. And so, because I feel like then I have no control. And it is very much around that almost chess-like, trying to get into your opponent's head and and I don't tend to enjoy that. So for me, it's not really the type of game that I would be keen to play.
For me, I can really appreciate those things that I've mentioned about the mechanics. I can see why so many people love it. Like those little things that they've done are just really, really clever. But for me, the game is a little short for me to get full satisfaction out of the gameplay. And if I compare it to a game like Battle Line, where you're kind of vying over territory control and you're playing cards on your side, and there's action cards that change that, I prefer Battle Line. I think
I would agree.
It's a bit meatier.
I still don't enjoy Battle Lines because, again, it's that whole kind of area control thing. But I also felt like in that one, even though you do have some cards that can break the rules of just the majority, it felt like it wasn't as chaotic as this one. And it's also... there's less of it, so there's still a lot more of it is stuff that I felt was well under my control, and not so much at the mercy of whatever the person's going to play next, and they're going to blow this up and that up.
Yeah, but I think it's quite clever in the order in which you play your cards is where the strategy comes in, and trying to mitigate against some of that chaos. But that is Air, Land and Sea.
The next game is The Castles of Burgundy, the card game. Now, this is another one that we got because a lot of people rave about the solo game, and I'd never played it. And I'm like, well, let me check out this solo mode as well. But it obviously plays multiplayer, so we've actually been able to play it multiplayer. We really enjoy, well, the Castles of Burgundy. You enjoy it more than I do.
I'm a big fan of the Castles of Burgundy.
I appreciate it. I enjoy it okay. It's not one of my favorite games. I don't know why. I think it's just I don't know why. Yeah, the
I mean, it's not super thematic.
It's really not. That's one barrier.
It's pretty mechanics.
But I don't know what it is. I think it's like the dice sort of picking, and I don't know. I don't have the words for it. But with this one, it's meant to be, obviously, you're only really using cards. So a lot of the things have been replaced with cards. I love how the way that you're representing the different terrains that you can get. It's like you've got cards with dice depicted on them. Every card has a die number as well on it. So you are using them in the first round. You're using them as the way to select out of the two cards or the two die rolls which one to use, which will then determine if you're going to go and collect something to put it into your projects as something to get ready to build, or if it's something that's already in your project, something that then you're going to build, and then you're going to get the benefit of that. Ultimately, just like in Castles of Burgundy, you're trying to create the most impressive estate by having all these sort of combinations of buildings working in synergies. And in this particular game, you only get to score the victory points if you have the triplets, they call it, so 3 of a kind, and then you get the points for that. There are other ways of getting points as well. I will talk about the solo in this. It is a very nice solo. So you're playing against Aaron, which I think it stands for almost real opponent. So Aaron. Yeah, Aaron. And it's a very simple one because it's simple, but it's tough. Because all you're doing is you're kind of setting Aaron up with all these different decks, and Aaron is going to automatically at the start of a round build all those cards that are in that deck, and they get bigger and bigger. So towards the end of the game, there's going to be a whole heap of buildings that all of a sudden triplets that all of a sudden Aaron's going to be able to do. And each round, you're actually checking score, and if at any point Aaron has more points than you immediately lose. So it's not just like, I'm waiting to the end of the game and see if I beat Aaron. It's like, well, no, you actually have to Aaron keeps you on your toes the whole way around, and it's very low maintenance in terms of low overhead, I should say. So it is nice as a solo again because like there's not a lot thematically. I don't it's probably not something that I'd be going back into, but quite an interesting implementation.
I quite enjoyed it. Because I do like Castles of Burgundy, but Castles of Burgundy is a bit annoying to set up. What I was surprised about by this game is a couple of things. So they could have easily included some dice in this game because often little card games still involve dice. But I really like the way they've implemented the choice of dice using cards, multi-use cards essentially. I was also really surprised by the fact that it takes up so much table space.
It really doesn't save any table space. Just the fact that it's like tiny cards. It's still like...
So table space wise, it's not. Do not take this traveling. This is not a game to take traveling. Yeah. But in terms of setting up, it is much easier than the Castles of Burgundy.
I would say if traveling, once you're in the hotel room and if you have a table, but not for during the road, like when you're at an airport or when you're at...
when you're on the go. It may look like a nice portable game, but no. But I felt like it actually replicated the experience of the Castles of Burgundy pretty well. Like if you're familiar with that game and you can use workers to manipulate your die roll, well, you can do that here, but just manipulating the dice on the cards. You've still got that tension of like whether you keep drafting different terrain types, and in this one it's even more tense, trying to get those different sets. So I think it did a pretty good job of it. I'm not sure if I would pull this one out instead of Castles of Burgundy because it didn't quite give me the same hit that I would be looking for if I wanted to play the Castles of Burgundy.
Yeah.
And also the Castles of Burgundy has a wonderful app as well, so I'd probably maybe turn to that before getting this out. But I do think it was very faithful to the original design.
I agree. I think it definitely captured the spirit of the
100%.
original design. So much so that what it did do is it made me wish for a bit of culture of the card game. I'm like, because that's the spirit. Like the games that I love, that I'm like, yes, I would love to play. If you can capture that in another format, I'm in. Like I'll play that.
Yeah, so I did really enjoy our time with Castles of Burgundy, the card game. Yeah.
And the next one?
The next one is On Tour. So On Tour is a flip and write game where you are playing as a band trying to make your way through North America or through Europe by traveling across from state to state or country to country. And doing a little tour. But the trick of this game is that those places have to be connected. And what you're going to be doing in this game is you each get a board and you get a whiteboard marker. This game plays 1 to 8. It came with 8 whiteboard markers. Not a single one worked, and one of them actually had no ink in it, which was
white.
It was super. I was like, "Is this an invisible pen?"
Like they never even tried to put ink in it.
Didn't even try. So that was super annoying, and that's really frustrating when that happens.
Have your own markers.
Have your own markers. Yeah. But you'll all get an individual whiteboard board, which is really cool. And what you'll be doing is rolling these big chunky dice, huge dice, and you'll be looking at the combination of the numbers. So not summing them, but if you have a 2 and a 4, then you'll be looking to write 24 and 42. So you have to write both numbers down on your map, and you can only place them in areas of the map according to 3 cards that you're going to be turning over every round of this game. So in that way, it's a bit like the, Welcome to, where you've got 3 choices of actions. But what's interesting is you'll be writing the numbers down in the states or the countries. And what you are ultimately trying to do, as I mentioned, is create a long link of numbers. And those numbers have to always be the same or greater than the number before it. So you're trying to make one long line, and you're only going to be able to score your longest line of connecting numbers. So then it becomes really tricky because you're kind of like risking getting the right number that you need, but also the right kind of region. So there's an interaction between region and on the card and the number that's coming up. But also you get bonus points if you can actually place a number in the exact state. So rather than the region, the state or the country that's shown on the card. So you can challenge yourself to try and make the puzzle even harder and pick up some bonus points along the way. There's one little other mechanical element here, which is if you draw 3 cards that are all the same region, or if you roll doubles, you get to draw a star, which is essentially a wild number that can help you fill some gaps. But that is basically On Tour and how it works. I enjoyed the game. I think I've actually had the app before this got delivered from Kickstarter, or maybe around the same time. Can't remember. But I'd played the app a lot more than I'd played this version. But I enjoy my time with it. Probably for me, the puzzle is interesting, but I think the puzzle is superseded by other roll and write games where I feel like there's more to do. Like this is hard. This is really hard.
I find super hard.
Yeah.
And I find frustrating at times because I often find that even if you have the best of plans or something, or like you're waiting for a particular number to come out, and then when it does come out, it's in the complete, like the regions that you have available are not right. So it feels like, I think the addition of the dice adds a lot more randomness that then makes me feel a lot less in control of the variables, which in theory should make it feel more satisfying when something does work for you. But I felt like that happens so rarely, and it could just be because I'm not very good at this sort of puzzle.
You struggled with this one a little bit.
I also, I hadn't actually done the comparison to Welcome To until you just mentioned it. And I'm like, yeah, I really enjoy Welcome To. And there are a lot of similarities in terms of how that plays.
Yes.
But Welcome To, they have the numbers already. So like the numbers in the cards.
Yes.
So you're never going to get stuck with, a whole bunch.
There's still inefficient combinations of things. But I think, as I was saying, this doesn't give you very many options.
Yeah.
So with Welcome To, you've got a range of things you can get done.
Yeah.
I think this game is really similar to Metro X in a way.
And yet I love Metro X,
Yeah,
and
but
I never felt stuck.
Yeah, because in Metro X you've got multiple lines that you're working on. And this is like really forcing you to try and focus on one long line. And so anything that deviates from that, yes, you can kind of rub out the line and may take it in a different direction. But ultimately, if you're trying to get low numbers all the way through to high numbers, it gets a bit precarious towards the end. And sometimes there's not a lot that you can do with the cards you are dealt, so to speak.
Yeah. So for me, it's like I appreciate it, but it's not like, of all the roll and writes that are similar to it, it's not the one that I would reach out for.
Yeah, it is very clever though, and very difficult. And the USA map is incredibly difficult for us because of like the state acronyms that are used, initials that are used for each state, and also just knowing, like being able to read the card and know exactly where the states are. Terrible.
It's a good geography lesson.
But it was a good geography lesson, and as we play, we're like, that's where that subscriber lives, and that's where that person lives. So you've got a postcard from there. Yeah, so that was fun. So that's On Tour, and our last little game won a very big award just recently as one of the games of the year, and that is MicroMacro Crime City.
This game I really enjoy because essentially it's like a Where's Wally, Where's Waldo type scenario of you have a huge map.
It's unlike anything we've ever played before.
Yeah, so you have a huge map with all these like illustrations in it, and you're gonna have different cases to solve. So you're the detectives trying to solve what could have happened. So it's not all like, usually it's just like a snapshot in time, but this one you actually have different periods of time, and so there's whole stories told throughout the.
Yeah, that's the thing that I wasn't expecting. So when you've probably seen a photo of, or you've seen mentions of the huge city map that you unfold that's in the box. So it does look like a Where's Wally, Where's Waldo kind of picture. But then that time element is so interesting because when you find a character on the map, you can actually look for that character somewhere else, and you can see what they were doing before they were doing whatever they're doing over here. So you can go back in time and be like, okay, then they went to this house, then they visited that person, then they stole something over here, and then and so like a good detective, you are working backwards with the information that you have to try and work out what has happened. And each of the cases range from 1 to 5 in difficulty. You start with a very light case, which really the game just steps you into finding something on the map. And when you find that thing, you look at the coordinates of that. So it might be in square A1. And then you check on the solution to see if you found it correctly. And have you deduced what has happened, or where this person lives, or what restaurant they went to, or whatever the question might be. And then you move on to the next part of the case where, like on the back here, it says, where is the murder weapon? And then so you're kind of working back from the murder scene, like where has the murder weapon been dropped? And so you're kind of like looking through to find all the clues, piece it together. It comes with a magnifying glass, which we didn't find that we needed, but we did need nice, good lighting, which they do say, make sure you've got good lights on. It's completely cooperative, so you're working together to find out or work your way through all these cases. We smashed through I think like half or more of the game in the first sitting. It's not particularly difficult. I would say that this would be a good game for maybe like teens, and I'm going to caveat that with the fact that it may look cute and fun, but actually it's really dark.
It's very dark. So there's a lot of murder in there. There's a lot of dodgy things kind of happening.
There looks like some really unsavory things happening.
And overall, it's not a happy city. Like even the people that aren't involved in crimes and stuff, they look very angry and not like having a great time.
Like and so just be conscious of that if you're buying this for children, because I think that that's really important. Like this did win a game award, and probably I wasn't expecting some of the, there's a scene of like, a woman dead being dragged through a park. Or,
I'm just looking at the side of the box. There's like someone being held up with a gun at gunpoint.
Yeah,
and it's like, that's just on the outside of the box.
And there's snipers on top of the building.
Yeah, and there's a lot of snipers everywhere.
The whole thing is very, very violent. And, it is Crime City. That's what it's called. But I don't know what I was expecting. I think because it looks like Where's Waldo, Where's Wally?
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, cute. And there's a cute little guy and then there is a dead guy on the box there.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it is particularly grim.
Beware.
I would say it's not too difficult. Probably the only thing I wish is that there were some harder things, but they are limited by what you can depict on this one picture. It is incredible the number of cases that they've put into this one picture because you're just using the same city map and going through all of these cases. So I actually, like when we were playing it, it was quite exciting.
Oh yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we were like both looking for something and I'm like, it was because over here. And then they met this person and like trying to work out what had happened and backtrack. It was actually a really fun time. Yeah. We don't cooperate very often, but when it's over a puzzle, it was good. It was fun, like a little mini escape room or something.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, but it's quite dark, so it's not something that you want to play with kids. Yeah. Unless you are comfortable having those sorts of conversations.
Yeah. So that is MicroMacro Crime City, and that is
all of our
games for this fortnight's Small Talk. If you liked this video, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I would love if some people could please write in the comments some questions for Maggie or for me, or for us both. It doesn't have to be about gaming, can be about anything within reason. We will answer it. So please drop your questions in the comments below and we'd love to answer them next episode. But thanks for watching. We'll be back this week with lots more content, including some Kickstarter previews, some board game reviews, and of course, if you haven't checked it out already, please check out Maggie's top 10 solos with Rahdo going live this week. But otherwise, have a great week and bye for now.